record, and it looks like we are recording. Can you guys hear me all right? If someone could just either say something in the chat.
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks guys. Sweet, so we'll just get into it. There's not too much to cover on my side today, but in general, the rules are still posted. We have that NDA that is still posted. I only received 5 NDAs total right now, so that doesn't include a couple more people. So if you haven't done your NDA, please get it in by hopefully tonight. And then based on the NDAs I received, that's how we'll develop our full team roster. And I'm going to set up a contact kind of matrix or spreadsheet, just with like names, emails, and if your NDA is turned in or not. So you can double check that to make sure your NDA is turned in. If you have any questions, feel free to get back to me, and I can let you know if I have it or not. Sweet. And then those are the same instructions that were posted last week, so make sure you download it. You can either print it or sign it electronically, and then send it back to that email, and it'll get auto dropped into our Dropbox, and that should work out. And that's basically all I had. And then just so you guys know, I've been working on some cool designs. I'm going to send out a poll probably in a couple days to see about Hyperloop merch. I don't think we have enough to do like a full like Hyperloop merch thing, like kind of like high school sports teams do. But I definitely want to figure out if you guys want long sleeves, short sleeves, polos or sweatshirts or something like that. So just want to get a poll on that, and then hopefully get some voting down on some designs, and then get some things ordered just so we have some swag, which I think would be pretty cool. But unless anyone had any specific questions for me, I'll just keep rolling, and I think Cody will take it away.
Yeah, so the drilling and excavation team had some pretty good accomplishments this week. We got our first round of testing done on cutter heads, which Dan was able to do. He has a video, which is in that link on the slides. So in it, we were able to pull some decent amount of information just from like the short amount of testing that was done. Like the designs we currently have, there wasn't any breakage or stall or anything, which is really great. One thing that was an issue though is that the heads weren't able to cut through some hard to pack clay. That was a layer in the soil box that Dan has made. So we're probably going to need to solve that by making just the cutting teeth a lot larger on every part of it, and that should help solve that. And another good takeaway was that having a space for soil to be able to like move from the front end of the head to the other end is super important to not letting it stall and being able to move quickly through the dirt. When it comes to some deliverables, our gym was able to get some very good soil feed system design information done and some models made up. And then Esther got a ton of research on additional research on full-scale TBMs, and she has some material options for the various parts of the head ready.
Can you hear me? All right. So this week I designed a soil feed system. So basically it's just a little area where the soil is stored after it's taken in by the cutting head. So right now we're going to use an Archimedes screw to remove the soil. But in the future we'll add either liquid or some type of solution to help the soil movement up the Archimedes screw. And that'll be based on future testing and the soil conditions. And then the size is really arbitrary right now. It really depends on how fast we can extract soil. And then I'm also planning to add like a system to take the soil after the Archimedes screw. So like possibly a conveyor belt system. Not really sure at the moment, but yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, so what I did this week was search for materials that could potentially be used for the cutter head and the cutting tools. And basically the conclusion I draw from Google was that mild steel would be like a good option to go with the cutter head, because we don't need that much strength on it, because the main stress on the cutting only thing is going to be on the cutting tools. And then I'm also checking onto aluminum because some papers said that there's some alloys of it that can be as strong as steel and that are lighter, so maybe that's good also, but probably it's expensive, so I'm still looking onto that. And then on the cutting tool parts, so all the case studies that I found, they said that the cutting tools were basically they wore out much faster than what they expected to, and that's not an option that we can go in and replace them. So I looked into using high strength low alloy steel, which is some cutting heads also use those in large scale. Then they usually add dents to the cutting tools, and that I don't know if we're going to do that, if we need to do that, but if we do, I'm looking onto hard water resistant alloys also to basically for the price of that, because it's also very expensive, some of them, so yes, we don't want that. But the main problem with all of this is that we don't have yet a final design or like the specifications of like what loads are we going to be facing or what motor, what torque we need. And so those are going to define the material choice that we're going to choose. But also on a good note on all of this, I found a paper that does include a lot of equations on what torque we should be expecting to need and what loads are we going to be facing. So yeah.
Sweet. That all sounds awesome. Good job, guys. I think, not sure whose slide is. Oh, it's back to Cody.
Yeah, yeah. So just the coming weeks, what to expect. We're going to make some redesigns to that cutter head model and implement in that soil feed system once it is fully ready, and then continue testing on that. And then next week for goals and deliverables, I'm wanting the design team to finalize that feed system design and then start designing brackets, bearings, and motor couplings and other things to allow the motor to drive the whole system. So just the feed system and the cutter head at the same time. And on the research side of things, Esther, I want you to finalize that material trade study so we actually get materials selected out of the options that you found. And so materials for the cutters themselves, the shaft or rod that will hold the cutters in place on the head. And then the actual head itself, we probably won't be able to get a full material just yet, but we'll try our best for that because it's a little more difficult. And Jason expressed some interest in doing research too, so Jason would be able to start looking into different motor options so we can get all the torque and RPM information once we pick out a motor. And then also just another thing I wanted to add in was after some of this research, we were thinking about another additional design possibility of conditioning the soil as we're excavating. So essentially having like holes on the surface of the head where a slurry will be pumped out forward as we're excavating. So it'll soften the soil as we're moving it through, and then it'll help it move through the feed system as well and reduce clumping and other things. That's it that we have for this week.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah, that's all great. And we can talk about it a little bit more. But I think next up is Rob.
All right, so this week we did some research into topics that fall kind of under the umbrella of computational electronics and control. We'll have those slides coming up. And we've decided to code the system in Python. We think that's going to be the best fit. And we're leaning toward the BeagleBone architecture because of its compatibility with Python. But this week we'll be conducting a trade study into what the best option for the computer is before we get the final decision next week. And this week we'll also be beginning on some skeleton code for the GUI.
So this week I looked into a lot of the guidance systems, and the big thing that I got is with a tunnel boring machine as compared to like something like a car, an RC car, you really have to have very accurate measurements of where you are and where you want to be, because it is just very hard to steer because of the dimensions and the terrain you're going through. So that was the big thing. Another thing is we're going to have to send telemetry data, including coordinates and some headings, the current length and a depth. Normally when you're having full-size TBMs, they get a lot of the length data with lasers. However, this is just completely unpractical for us because you have to have people in there to like install the lasers and wireless receivers and calibrate all that, which we will not be able to get into. A final thing was like the digging speed is we have to find a path based on what digging speed, what materials are going to be there, because we need to find like what is going to be our cutter, what is the speed through the different materials, because that is definitely going to affect our path choice. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Max. So based on Max's research, we're almost certainly going to use lasers for the guidance in terms of turning the TBM. And thankfully, we already have some lasers, which is really nice. And also, I just want to point out that we haven't completely ruled out using lasers to measure distance of the tunnel. I was kind of combing the rules, and it seems like we are allowed to access the tunnel at the starting point, and therefore we can put a small laser module depending on how we start the tunnel. So it's not completely ruled out, but it might end up being just unpractical for us to use. And so as I said, this coming week, we're going to start constructing the skeleton code for the GUI and also perform a trade study on the best computer to use. And then just to finish off and round this off, some questions about any new sensors that people might have come up with this week, and then any requests for specific information to be displayed in the GUI. So if anyone has any of those, feel free to speak up right now.
Sweet.
All
So,
right.
Awesome job, guys. So I just wanted to add real quick, actually kind of going off your sensors. So in the past, what Hyperloop has done, we'll usually have a spreadsheet down. And so like if, for example, Cody or someone on Cody's team, or not even Cody's team, but anyone on the team decides that they need a certain metric or a certain value, they'll go into this something called the sensor spreadsheet, and they'll put down what unit they need and the range of that unit. And then the electronics team, which is primarily right now Rob's team, you guys would go in and then source that sensor respectively to make sure that it's accurate and fits that range. So that might be something to get set up this week, is maybe a spreadsheet for that. And then general thoughts on the GUI. I would really just try to display as many sensor values as you can, because there's never too many numbers. That's a joke, but I would
For
maybe
sure.
think
I'll get to work on a spreadsheet. For the GUI, it's mostly like if there's something we're missing that the excavation team thinks will be necessary for properly maintaining the TBM while it's working.
Yeah, definitely. I would make sure to get all sensor values into that GUI in some pane or some window of sorts. But yeah, awesome job. Sweet. And then I don't know if Dan has made it yet. Is he here? Let me check.
I am here.
Oh, he has made it.
You
I'll let him
guys are
take
all
over.
saved. Yeah, no need to worry. Okay, so I just talked to the Society of Women Engineers, for women engineers, to try to recruit some more members. So hopefully that yields a couple new people. We'll see what happens. And I think Cody mentioned this before, but I posted a video of a cutting head test to YouTube, along with the other team meetings 2 and 3. So if you missed one of those meetings, you're able to check it out and get caught up. And then here is the exact same survey from last week, except this time it's going to collect your name and your email address, because I have no clue who's interested in leadership and who is not, which is a problem. So if you could quickly fill that out again, that's all I have for tonight.
Sweet. Awesome. And I think that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that recording now.